What's going on, Illumineers, and welcome back to the madness. We've got a new set. We've got Azurite Sea coming out in just 4 days from the recording of this video. Things are getting exciting. Things are getting hyped. People are doing testing, proxies, Lorcanito, all of the above. People are excited. This set, a lot of us are talking about how it's going to change the meta, how we're going to see a change in pace, and I think we are. I've got 12 decks for you guys today to just kind of look at some of the changes that we're seeing, some of them changing quite a bit, some of them changing not at all. But we're definitely looking at how things might be sped up, especially at the beginning, like any trading card game. They happen to speed up a little bit, but also we're still seeing the control variance of things. Needless to say, we've got 12 great decks to look at, and a lot of these decks I found from 20 lore, so definitely check out that Discord. I lurk in a lot of pages, I chat in a lot of pages, but super helpful people, a whole lot of really good players giving their insight on all of these decks. But I think there's a lot of exciting stuff coming, a lot of stuff that is going to happen because of some of the new cards we got that are just going to shake things up. So all we can do is hope and think and just hope that things are a little bit different for the next set, change things up. But with that being said, we do have our giveaway winner from the giveaway video. Now, as we go here, we'll just say it first. Our giveaway winner is Philip Peters 5689. Congratulations, man. Really happy for you. Now, what did you win? I got a little overzealous. I got a little excited. I said 1K subscribers. I shot for the moon. We did not hit it. But huge thank you to all of you. My subscriber count, it did go up. Watch time, all of those cool analytical analytics things went up. So I really appreciate all of you. And that's why I wanted to do this video or do the giveaway in the first place. But we didn't hit 1K. I talked to Safari Zone. They said that's fine. They're still going to sponsor that trove that they said they do for 1K. So we're still going to sponsor that trove that Safari Zone offered. So congratulations, Philip Peters. You're going to win that trove. And I'm still going to hold on to the mats. I'm still going to hold on to the Stitch Collector set item. And I also got a couple more Maribels that I was able to win past my play set, and we're going to do more giveaways. I really like doing giveaways. I think it's a great way to give back to all of you for all the support that you give me. So definitely look out for those because we're going to start seeing them a little bit more often. Philip, I tried finding some contact information on YouTube. I couldn't find any, so I hope that you watch this video and we can get you that trove. Please let us know. I need you to shoot me a message on Discord. Any way possible, shoot me a message. The easiest way is to just join my Discord and message me in there because we're going to need your contact information, address, all that good stuff. If I don't hear back from you, let's say in 2 days. So if I don't hear back from you, yeah, in 20, we'll say 36 hours from when this video goes live, I'm going to have to choose another winner. So hope you see this, man. Congratulations. Let's look at the decks, though. First up, we have some green purple. Now, I'm really excited for green purple. I am not a big green fan, but I think green purple is in a really, really good place. We're seeing this come down from, Artabox's tempo variation of green purple that came around last set, and we're seeing a more aggro version. Now, Tetans, this is a very similar to Artabox's aggro version that he posted early on in the kind of a couple days ago. And in Artabox's version, he had one rabbit, one Cusco, one Peter Pan, and then a couple of these numbers were different. What Tantan's done here is he's taken those one ofs out and just gone full aggro and just said, hey, here's all my stuff. Here's my Lyle. Here's my kit to beat up on the aggro players. Here's my Ursula for the singers. Here's my refill with the Yzma. Just a lot of Genie, of course, I think Genie is in the top two for the best cards of the new set between Genie and Azurite Sea, but the new ramp card. But we have, of course, the Rose and the Goat for that instant lore, the Go-Go, because now they trade into your bonsai. They take 3 damage. You play go go, and now you get 3 lore. Like it's just this thing is just going crazy. It's going nuts right off the top. And I think it's in a really good place. So we went away from Artabox's tempo variations of seeing like the Clarabelles and the Ursulas and going for more of that kind of from start to end, having kind of cards on the field to I'm just gonna beat you out. I'm just going to play all these cards. I'm just going to win, and it's not gonna get to the point where I need a Clarabelle to refill my hand because we're never gonna make it that far. I think so. I think the green purple is in a really good place. I think the green purple is gonna do very, very, very well into this next set, and I think this is the way that it's going to really do very well as well. So I love to see it. I strongly urge you guys, if you don't know what to play yet, this might be a really good place for you to start. So next up, we have some blue steel. I have 2 blue steel lists, a wheel version and a non-wheel version. And this is Riplung's version. There's a lot of wheel versions rolling around, but I wanted to showcase this one because it's bringing back a card that I think blue steel missed last set that made a really big impact. And that card being Zeus. Let me go ahead and minimize myself here. That card being Zeus, I think that Zeus in set 4, I thought the as a Steel Song player, I thought that Blue Steel was a pretty hectic matchup, pretty tough matchup for Steel Song because of Zeus in particular. And then last set, or set 5, they cut Zeus completely, and we got Daisies. And then now I felt that we were almost unbeatable for. I felt that Steel Song was almost unbeatable for Blue Steel, and bringing with the Jim Hawkins and the Zeus, I think that Steel Song's gonna have a really hard time because now we can't just play something like a 1/5 Rapunzel that goes unanswered because they can Zeus it. And of course, so we have the Jim Hawkins, which is effectively a 4/4 on the field. We have the Pluto that can sing the Zeus and a strong bodyguard for Ariel. We have the big Jim Hawkins, which is effectively, if you shift it on 4, this is effectively going to be a 9/5, or if you shift it on 3, it's going to be a 7/5 because it gets the +2 challenger from the other Jim Hawkins. So now if you shift this on turn 3 when you're on the draw, then you can take out their library and almost you do 7 damage. But if you're on the play, or maybe you do this on turn 4 and you have a Fishbone Quill down, you can take out the library in one shot. So I think this is just a really effective list. Of course, you have the wheels. I wouldn't run Zeus without the wheel personally because then you're emptying your hand too quickly and you have to somehow refill it. But I think this is a really good wheel list that I'm excited to try. Things to consider when you're building your own list that you might want to tech in the Magic Broom to help with the Diablos, the green steel, which isn't going anywhere. So maybe if you wanted, you could cut down one Jim Hawkins, another Jim Hawkins, and go 2 Magic Brooms, maybe. If you do believe you're going to have a lot of green steel in your area or a lot of green, period. The Mr. Smees. Now, Mr. Smee is a really interesting one because Blue Steel has always been about I need to get to 10 lore. If I can get to 10 lore, I'm in a really good place to just win the game because I have Aerial plus Dime. And that was a really effective thing, and Smee really helped the deck to get there. Now, what can happen now, though, is you can play Jim, shift Jim. Now you have a 5/5 that doesn't die every turn. And that, if you have a Cogsworth down, if you shift this on turn 3 and Cogsworth on turn 5 or turn 4, then they're going to have a really hard time of even killing your 5/5. So maybe the Jim Hawkins, the big Jim Hawkins, makes up for the lack of the Smee. But another good 2-drop you could try. Of course, if you're running the wheel variant, Let It Go is always a really good card as well because you have your 5 drops to be able to sing Let It Go. You'll never really using Ariel to sing it, of course, but it's always an option. And then of course Gantu. I don't think he has a place, but I just really want to see Gantu in something. And I'll talk about this in pretty much every steel deck. I just really love Gantu. Just that 4 lord just looks so pretty. But moving on, we have a no wheel list, and no wheel was already in a really good place. I prefer no wheel, um, but I don't know. It's last set I definitely preferred no wheel, but this set with the Zeuses, I think wheel might be better. But this version, of course, I just kind of put together really fast, and all I really did to it is I added the Azurite Seas and I added the Jim Hawkins. This is Sky's list from last set. I just cut the Smees and I did something else. I'm not sure what it was, but things to consider here, I would most likely, if I was go back in and redo this right now, I would cut one Cogsworth and probably one Azurite Sea and throw in maybe a Jim Hawkins and another Hades, or maybe two Smees. It's hard to say, but again, this list, one of the nice things about it is Ursula, if green is really popular, Ursula can only take grab your swords. So the odds of them getting anything are really slim, and I really like that. You have Hades for hard removal that they can't, rip from your hand. You have the Simbas to deal with Diablos, the Magic Brooms to deal with Diablos. And it's just I like the 4 Azurite Seas because now it's like essentially it's a cantrip like your 8 items here. So you're just drawing through your deck. Remember, with Azurite Sea, you don't have to ink another card. You can simply just play Azurite Sea to draw a card. And sure, it costs 2 ink, but you're still ripping through your deck so you can get to the Ariel Dime Pete combo that you're really hoping for if you need to get to the Hades, because you don't have Whole New World to be able to search for stuff. So instead, you need these 8 items, you need the visions, you need the sale of the Azurite Sea. That way, you can get to your answers that you really need. So I liked the no wheel this set for set 5, but I think if you're gonna run Zeus, which I think Zeus is just going to be better into this set. It's hard. Yeah, I think it's going to be better into this set. Then the wheel version might be better. The only issue with this though, if you run the wheel version, is if aggro is the way the meta goes, then you're going to want to run the no wheel version because the last thing you want to do is re give them a brand new hand. So something to consider. Definitely a couple routes to look at and well, just think about when you're building your decks. Another card you can consider is Twin Fire, but Twin Fire, yeah, all you're doing is helping the green steel discard, in my opinion, by playing that. You're emptying your hand. Sure, you may get lucky enough to hit a Diablo and the morph, right? The baby Diablo and the big morph, but that's best case scenario. And game 3, if it goes to that, they're not going to fall for that. They're not going to do that. They're not going to give you the option to do that unless they just want you to empty your hand because they have so many discard. And so I don't know. I don't see Twin Fire being a relevant card. But moving on, we have Sailor, we have Sizu on ice, red blue. My not so favorite deck ever, but this Sailor's always going to be my red blue go to when it comes to looking at what red blue is doing. And one thing that he is doing that's rather nasty is he's got Maui plus Vitalosphere to be able to say, hey, here's my play Vitalosphere early. And then, oh, look, it's a Maui with Rush now. And how exciting is that? Because now you get to Maui Rush and you can bring back Hideaway, you can bring back Visions, you can bring back Brawl, you can bring back Pirate's Life, Let It Go. Like now, because of Maui, you can afford to run these one ofs because now you have Maui that can go and bring them back. And now it gives you the opportunity to just kind of do this. And because red blue digs so well, then you're in this world where let me run one ofs that run all these tech cards that I want. I'll still run a lot of the things I need, but because I can search so fast, because I have the ability to dig through my deck so well, then it's not the end of the world to run these one-ofs. And if we look at it, only 2 B preps, 3 Sizus, essentially. You can afford Maui can bring back a B prep, and also it's 2 less that can be taken from your hand or stopped by Pete. Of course, you have your Sizus that can shift off of this Sizu, and you have your ice blocks that Sizu can just answer stuff, Medusas. So the normal red blue package, right? You got your 1 lucky dime because if it gets banished, that's okay. You have Maui to bring it back, I think. No, Maui can't bring it back, but that's fine. Maui can only bring back actions. That's fine though because you still have all these Tamatoas, the Caesars, the Pirate's Life. You still have all these cards that can quest you and get you to 20 if you do lose your dime. And so I think it's just a really effective list. I think this Maui plus Vitalosphere is a super sexy combo that I just really hate to see. I don't have any recommendations on what you could add or change about red blue. I really don't. The deck itself, as long as you're running, the visions, the ice blocks, I think you're in a great place. There is the red blue items variant running around, but I just think the ice block Sizu version is just better. And so I don't have one to show, but yeah, nasty combo. Really upset about seeing this. Moving on. I will add this. There is one thing to consider. The meta might be too fast for red blue next set. That's just it. If we look back at that green purple list from earlier, if that really takes off, it just wins before this really gets off. Unless you can get this stellar combo of Pirate's Life over and over and over again, most likely you just lose. And you'll see some other lists where the aggro just goes so fast that this red blue might be too slow next set unless they really start to think, but they'll have to make that call when the meta starts to develop. So next up, we have 2 decks from JDRR. Really might be one of the more helpful, most helpful people on 20 Lore Discord. Also a coach, but if you've ever spent any time with a purple deck, you've most likely seen him, especially in the Blurple and Purple Steel pages. Just a phenomenally insightful guy, and so I took both of his lists because I don't think there's better lists out there. So looking at this list, what do we have? I'm just going to turn sideways. All right. We have 8 cantrips right off the bat. We have the Calhouns, which Calhoun's a very interesting card, but one of the things most people won't turn sideways, right? So they see a Calhoun, so they're like, okay, I'm not going to turn my broom sideways. I'm not going to turn my 1-drop sideways because I don't want to give them 2 lore. That's perfectly fine. And one thing I am perfectly content if you don't want to turn sideways because that means you're just giving me extra time to quest. That means you're giving me extra time to win. And meanwhile, you're just doing nothing. You're literally sitting there doing absolutely nothing while I quest away. And I'm perfectly fine with that. So I can quest with Chernobogs without banishing it, and then play Calhoun, and then turn 3, I can still quest with Chernobogs and not banish it because I almost want you to just take it out so that I can then take you out with Calhoun and gain 2 lore. It's so Calhoun is doing better than we thought. Is there a lot of decks that she can fit into? No, there's not, but I think this is one of them. We, of course, have the 3 crabs because crab is just a monster. Purple always takes crab out. They regret it. They always bring purple or crab back. We have the Tinkerbell. This is reminiscent of the Minnie Mouse Surfer, the 132 evasive. And then we have the Genie, the 242. So now you have 8 evasives that quest for 2. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 8 evasives that quest for 2. And how many decks run stuff that can take out evasive? There's not a lot. So now you have these 8 evasives questing for 2, and you forgot to add anything into your deck that can actually remove them. So you have this stuff down here, la di da di da, you're doing great, and then Tinkerbell. And that's like, okay, well, that's interesting. Not a big deal. Then they're like, Genie. Now it gets more difficult. Well, now, if you are like, okay, I need to race them, now we can just shift Tinkerbell and because you walked into it and we kill something and then we banish another something and now you're down 2 characters. And meanwhile, I'm still questing away with Genie. I still have my goats. I still have my smashes, my Zeuses, like just all this phenomenal stuff that is happening. This deck can just turn sideways and just win. Some considerations to throw in it: maybe the Rose. If you were to do that, I would cut the Tinkerbells for Rose. Just it's like the goat. You just gain a lore, and then it just does its thing and just starts questing. You essentially gain 2 lore with the Rose. You could go the Maleficent route, just a 1-drop that quests for 2. And of course the Gantu, because I want to see Gantu in something. Both of these I wouldn't do unless you really wanted to cut the Zeus's, but the Zeus is just so good with the Genie because you're almost guaranteed something that can sing Zeus to help you get back the board. But uh, that would probably be where I went if I was to cut if I was to add Maleficent, is I'd cut Zeus. Rose would probably go in for Tinkerbell. But if you guys really wanted to pursue that idea, hit up JD. He's in the 20 Lore Discord, in the Purple Steel page, and hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm sure he's going to give you an answer. He may tell you you're wrong. Probably not. He's just going to give you some logic. And then if to take that logic however you please, but he's going to give you some good logic all the same. So, next up, we have Blurple. This is one that I'm super excited for as well. I love Blurple. I love the play style, just ramp and then lock them out kind of stuff. We're running 10 cantrips, and the reason we can do this and we're happy with this is because of Sail the Azurite Sea. Because now on turn 2, we can play Sail the Azurite Sea and then also play another cantrip. So we can play Chernobog's on 1, Sail on 2, and then a Diablo on 2. And then we can play on 3, we can go Crab to kill anything we want, or Fox, and then we go into turn 3, we could also just play Genie, or we could play Goat. Turn 4, we then go into a Bell because we traded a Broom into something, and then the Bell then moves the 1 damage off of the Broom to take out the other 1/1/2 that the aggro deck is playing. This is just a fun deck. If you were to consider anything, there's a world maybe where you add in Rose. A lot of Blurple players are really happy with Great Stone Dragon or Mufasa's, and I think both of those are just bad. I don't think they're worth considering or throwing in here. If you were to change up this list, you could do -2 bells for 2 Finders Keepers, or and that would just you go that route, beat up if you have a really green steel heavy, you know, field that you're playing into. But Bell can be really good into green steel as well because if they just throw Diablo onto um, Hidden Cove, you're gonna have a hard time killing that. So the Bell can help with that. Bell is just super good into aggro, super good into Steel Song. So there's just a lot of places that Bell can work out really well. Um, but I think Blurple's in a good place. Is it going to be better than Purple Steel? It's hard to say. One thing is Blurple, we cut all the locations out, so it's not as good into Red Blue as it was. I felt that Blurple was a really easy win against Red Blue last set, but now with no locations, it's definitely harder now. It's definitely in a worse place in my opinion, but it can still very much get the win because you're just drawing so much and then constantly playing these threats. And you always have enough ink that you can bounce your goats, so those are never in the death range. So just a really effective deck that can answer a lot of things. You could drop 1 Elsa to go to 3 Hades and go 3/3 if you wanted to. But this list I think is a really good place to start and then just kind of change these numbers. I don't really know about cards to kind of add in. White Rose is there, but I don't think that's the answer. So another good list. If you want to help with it, go talk to JD. He also does coaching. He's the only person I've ever used for coaching. Phenomenal player, extremely intelligent player. Definitely hit him up in 20 Lore Discord. Next up, we have Burn. All right, we saw this at Seattle do very well. As I know, I'm on Warp on Discord. And in this list, Have some water, don't mind me. So this is Georgie's burn deck. I like this deck. I think it's interesting because it runs Fairy Ship. Fairy Ship is essentially just another one drop. So you have these seven cantrips here, and then you have the Fairy Ship. Now, one thing, if you guys watched a lot of the deck tech, listening to Warp and El Raffion talk about, or their team talk about the burn deck, is the locations offer extra life because people worry about taking out the locations instead of questing. So, Fairy Ship being a 1/4/1, sure it gains one port lore passively, or they take it out. And there's not a lot taking out a Fairy Ship early on in one turn. So now you're gaining that extra life essentially because they're taking out Fairy Ship instead of questing. So meanwhile, you now run 3, 6, 10 one drops. You have Cusco for draw. Fox is something I think the deck was missing. I know what they were doing, right? But I think Fox is just another added benefit to the deck, a really good piece of it because it lets you have crab plus Fox. It lets you bounce goofies. It lets you bounce genies. It lets you bounce goats, which is probably going to be the best way to use it. In the goat or goofy range, but it lets you just bounce anything to be able to take out most anything. So I think Fox is a really good thing to bring back into the deck. We have the new genie, of course, and so the list is still doing what Burn does. Now, things to consider that people have been playing around with, we have Thievery, which lets you gain one lore and the opponent loses one lore, and White Rose, where you play it, you gain one lore, which is essentially gaining two lore. And I think Thievery, the one lore just doesn't, it's not worth it because what do you cut to add it? The foxes, and the foxes get you that anyways with goat. They get you that with trades. Like thievery means nothing is if you just die to aggro, if you just die to steal song, where fox can actually help you come back from those. Same with white rose. White rose at least offers the benefit of being able to trade as a 3/3/1, but you're trying, so that is a better argument. I would run white rose over thievery, but otherwise we have Queen's Castle if you wanted to throw that in for the fairy ship. But turn four, you're already looking at doing so many different things. You got all these, you got 12 four drops here on top of the Chromacons, on top of the libraries where you just want to move stuff. So I think if you wanted to, the fairy ship is a worthy replacement for the Queen's Castle, because honestly, they have to kill all your stuff because if you're burning, so library just serves as that draw engine even better. I think Maui's just too slow, the half shark. I think, you being able to get off Maui and being able to attack is just kind of that dream play. But a lot of the time, what have you discarded by the time Maui gets down? Maybe you only had a Goofy plus Gathering Knowledge, so you could get a Gathering Knowledge back. But what do you replace to fit Maui in? Because I would never cut these two Mauis because you need those rush. You need the ability to be able to stay in the game and control the game. I think the half shark is just too slow for this deck. Now cutting Prince Eric, this is where the foxes are, right? Or part of it. And this one's rough because I think Prince Eric is one of the better cards in the entire deck. I think the ability to just quest for two, but also control the board is just so incredibly powerful. And I it hurts to remove Prince Eric. I just don't know what you would add it in for, because it you don't want to cut the crabs because the crabs plus Cusco is super good. You don't really want to cut the Sizus. Um, I just don't know what you cut it for. I don't want to cut the genies because the genie offers good draw, but maybe that's what it is because you don't need the draw. Um, so maybe you could go 2 and 2, try that. I would I would try this to see what happens, but I think Genie is more of a this card is really good, but I don't know if it's really good in this list. Because again, if he comes down and does nothing, but Prince Eric comes down and does nothing, but at least next turn he's guaranteed to do something. And now maybe your opponent doesn't trade because they don't want Prince Eric to remove and banish something from the field. Oh, so yeah, I think that's what I would do is I would start with 2-2. I would go 2 Prince Eric, 2 Genie, and start with that and kind of see how it feels. But definitely give 4 Genie a try. Maybe it is fast enough with Genies that you don't really care. I don't think so, but maybe it is. And maybe the Foxes do enough to trade where you don't need the Prince Eric to trade. So maybe that's the good trade-off there is Foxes plus Genies can replace the Prince Eric. So a good list, a good red purple list from Georgie, the burn list. But next up, we have another Georgie list, and what he's more well known for is that red purple control. Now, looking at this list, this is something that I was playing around with already, and why I wanted to highlight this list because of the Moana and Flynn Rider combo. If you go Moana into Flynn Rider, I don't think there's another deck that can stop that. You're gaining at least 3 lore. Now, the only thing that can stop you from gaining 3 lore would be Steel Song. That's it. Nothing. No, I guess there's also Blue Steel if they're running Fire the Cannons. But at that point, like that is such a strong combo. Like, what does Red Blue even do into that? If you go Moana into Flynn Rider, like Red Blue's they're just in really big trouble. Now, did it change? I guess does that change anything? I guess 2 attack was enough previously, anyways, because what did they have? Tipo, right? Until they got to Gramatala. So maybe it doesn't make that big of a difference. But in my head, that Moana plus Flynn Rider is just so effective. And then she just sits there and quests for 1 and then trades into anything. So you do lose draw power, so because you're not running 8 cantrips, and there's a good chance you also don't get an extra, or you don't even see a 1 drop because you're only running 6 1 drops. But looking at the rest of the list, pretty typical. You can't afford to cut genies, or sorry, foxes, especially where you're only running 4 cantrips because you need that bounce fox to draw, that package going on. Even with the finders keepers, like, you need that bounce package. But one thing to note, because you have the Moanas in here, you don't have any snakes. So your only bounce package now is the fox, which really hurts because now you can't also bounce the goat. And now you really have to choose, what do I need right now? Do I need the draw from the rabbits or do I need the lore from the goats? So if you ran a list like this, I think it becomes much more high skill cap than your normal list. Like, this is not a list that any red purple player could pick up. It's a list that I think would take someone like Georgie to really pilot and do really well with. So the Lucas, the Georgies, the Kindles, all of those guys. But you still have 3 ladies, 8 locations. I think, looking at it right now, I think this has to go away. I think this makes it too slow. In a world that everyone's saying the next meta is supposed to be super fast, I think that 8 locations, you're just dead in the water against anything that goes faster. Sure, you have brawls, you have foxes, but there's no crabs. So you're not hitting anything with a broom because you don't have brooms. So I think if you ran this list in the early meta, you might be dead in the water. So maybe cutting the 4 castles, or maybe going 2 of each to add in maybe cantrips or foxes, just anything to help with the aggro matchup. I think is what's needed right off the bat. But I think we see a lot of people red purple complaining that red purple is dead now. Again, everybody's been saying that for as long as I've played this game. Red purple is not going anywhere. It's still a phenomenal deck. It's still going to do great things. Next up, we have Humble with his Ruby Fossa list. And this is just kind of, he posted this really early on. He said in their video he's going to have a more updated version. But I love Ruby Fossa. I'm awful. My win rate percentage with Ruby Fossa is in the garbage can. Awful, bad, so unbelievably bad. But it might be one of my favorite decks because it's just like, here's a Mufasa. Oh, look, a Chernobogs, right? Now, looking at it, he's going hard with the discard package. He's going hard early, trying to get that early lore between Lilos and Piglets. He still has the heal package for draw. I think Scar is a useless card that should be cut, but he's really big on it because he doesn't run any removal mostly, right? He has Maui's and Maleficent's Dragons, but Scar gives him that little bit of removal that he can cheat out on turn 4. So that, on turn 4, there's still targets for 2 damage, but I still will die on that hill that I think Scar is pretty much useless. If it did see any play, it would be in this type of deck, this Ruby Fossil list that it is playing, the Docs and the Gastons to cheat out early on turn 4. We do have the the Judy Hops, which I believe, um, yeah, so you get to ready one of your characters, which is really cool. And then, of course, you have the Simba. So now you have the Judy Hops plus Simba to ready all of your characters on the field. So that's kind of fun and cheeky. So we have 8 Stitches, and who doesn't love a Stitch deck? We have the Father Son combo. So just a really fun deck. Is it any better than it's ever been before? No, I still think it's going to be a tier 2 deck. But it's still a Ruby Fossilist. I had to show it because it is probably my favorite archetype. I'm just really bad with it, so I don't play it very often. But I've had it sleeved up longer than any other deck, actually. And it has 8 Stitches and the Father Son combo. So what's not to love, right? So there we go, a Ruby Fossilist. Next up, we have Coffin here with his blue-green list that he said has been doing really well, a part of the what's now the Flower fam. But this deck is just nasty, right? Because you're bouncing all this stuff, you're giving them all these cards, you're welcoming them to draw them 2 cards. You're like, hey, have all these cards in your hand because I'm gonna cheat out this early Clarabelle, and then I'm gonna make you bend to my will and discard your whole hand. Not till after I draw 11 cards off of your 11 cards. So we have the Peter Pan, which is really neat, of course. So Peter Pan's just saying you don't get to gain lore unless you challenge something. So this just really beats up on the blue steel and red blue lists that are trying to just they're just trying to quest underneath you, right? They play the aerial, they play the Tamatoa and the dime. Well, now they have to challenge. So you could leave them their aerial and you're welcome everything else or bounce everything else. And you don't really care because they're not going to challenge anything with their characters. And so now they can't gain lore. So that's pretty awesome. Peter Pan is just a really great way to stall the game, a really effective thing to that you could do. I think this list can be really effective. He said his harder matchups have been aggro and steel song because they go so wide. But Radigan's Trap to make them lose lore, just some really goofy stuff. Tons of bounce between muses and Kit, and then John Silver giving things reckless. I didn't add anything over here, but things to consider. Maybe you throw in Lyle for more reckless and more aggro hate. That could be something you could do. But yeah, I really like this list. Another list that I will sleeve up. I just got my playset of Clarabelles as well, specifically for this list. I haven't told Coffin though, so um, I don't want to make his head too big. But a really cool list. I really like it. Blue, just be prepared when you run this list. You need to play fast because this is a very slow deck. So if you're doing a best of 3 and they have like a 50-minute timer or something, you need to play faster because you don't want to go to time in a best of 3 if you're playing game 3. So just be cognizant of that, okay? But next up, we have Green Steel Discard. And Green Steel Discard's in an interesting place because we keep talking about the meta really speeding up. And in the past, Discard has really, you know, really said no to aggro because aggro's trying to play their hand so fast. But meanwhile, if Green Steel Discard is making them discard what's left of their hand, they're going to run out of options. And the thing is, though, is that Green Steel Discard now doesn't make them start discarding as fast as previous discards. So there's a world where some of these discard decks that aren't, previously our big aggro decks were like the amber amethyst aggro decks, where it's literally just I'm gonna empty my whole hand, get to top deck mode, and then get to 20 that way. But now we're seeing a lot more aggro decks like Steel Song aggro and Green Purple aggro. There's the Purple Steel aggro that are still able to get a good hand size and everything and beat you down, beat the green steels down fast enough to where their discard doesn't matter. So now maybe there's a world where green steel, and I'm not a green steel player. I don't like discard, so I don't play discard. So I don't really know what the ways are to build this deck in that direction. There's been the green steel discard world has been very quiet right now, but I think it's still a very effective deck. I think you can do something like Chris Merfolk on turn one and then drop a Prince John on turn three. And now they're scared to kill your Chris Merfolk because they don't want to let you draw and they discard a card. So your Chris Merfolk kind of sits there drawing or questing for two. Maybe you add the Go-Go's or the Flynn Riders to go even harder. So you go Chris Merfolk into Flynn Rider into Prince John. Or maybe you add the shift line. And if you had the shift line, there's a world where you could add Zeus's in here. And so with the shift line, you're able to get to 20 by just beating down the aggro players with Robin Hood questing. So there's a lot of options here. I think you can cut, maybe if you wanted to go the shift line, you cut the Tinkerbells, the Cursed Merfolks. So there's 6 cards right there. Maybe an Anna for 7, and then something else, because then you can go Robin Hoods and Robin Hoods. But you don't even necessarily have to do that, because you might just be able to add in some Robin Hoods because you have Morph. So now you can go Morph, and so maybe you do that because Morph can be your shift line. And now they don't know if Morph is going to be a Diablo, a Beast, a Tinkerbell, a Robin Hood. So green steel discard is in an interesting place where if the meta is really fast, they still have options that they can keep up with it. They still have booms and they'll let the storm rages on, and then also have enough discard to be able to handle the more controlly matchups. So I don't know what that looks like. We need the Zans and the Wonderlands and all of those guys to that play green steel to kind of figure that out. But be prepared that I think we might see some changes. But also, you could easily just run the old green steel list and win games. Like, I don't think you have to change anything, because greens, like, discard just does what discard does. It's a difficult deck to play, but at the same time, the deck, because it is discard, does such a great job of making disrupting people's play that they just don't know what to do, and it just wins on the nature that it high rolls better than any other deck in the game. And that's what green steel does really well. Sometimes it just runs itself for the victories. So just another effective list that you could run. You could run a set 5 list and not change anything and do really well at any events that you have coming up. So finally, we have Steel Song. This is currently where I'm at with it, and it looks a little rough because it is a little rough. We're Steel Song, I think, is in a really good place right now, where we have a lot of different options that we could do with it. Looking at this list, there is no shift line in it. I've been finding the no shift line to do very well so far. Just beating up decks, because you can go this really aggro route and they just can't do anything about it. You're just playing too many targets. I found Lilo to be really, really good, actually. With that being said, I think Lilo is a little bit of a higher skill cap card, because you can't just say, oh, I have some, look at my hand. Oh, I'm going to have 2 ink left over. Let me just force a Lilo. Well, Lilo requires a little bit more finesse, because you have to be able to look at what's in your discard, what have you seen off of your aerials, like play a little bit of an analytical game here and study what's happening, because there may be a world where you there's a chance you draw something that you really need that 2 ink for, or maybe just like you just need to be aware of what's going on. And so Lilo's not an automatic throw in and then just play every time. So just be aware. But it helps you go into those long games where you have 5 ink, you're only top decking Lawrence's and Pete's. Well, now you can force down a Lilo. Or if you're at 6 ink, you can force down a Pluto and Bodyguard and a Lilo behind Pluto. With that being said, changes that I'm looking at making with this list is I'd possibly cut the Nala, the two Gantus, go a fourth Pluto, a fourth Lilo, and a maybe a Naveen. The one thing I'd really like to do is get up to 4 Ursulas and 4 Zeuses, but it's just what do we do to get there? And maybe it's the cut the I'm Still Alive's. So 2, 4, 5. So there's 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then add a Naveen. And that Naveen just gives you some explosiveness. It lets you do things on the draw that you normally wouldn't get to do. Mainly being, I want Naveen to be able to sing Zeus because that lets me take out anything I want, gain back some tempo, go hard in the paint. So, of course, you can still go the shift line. I've been playing with the shift line as well, trying to figure things out. Simba's been a little bit of a letdown. Still needs a lot more testing. It'll be easier when more people are playing more refined decks. But Queen, still phenomenal, still an amazing card, still a higher skill cap card. But what she does is phenomenal. And then, of course, your good old Robin Hood to just beat down things. But I've been enjoying this list. Definitely some changes I'm going to try. Again, I really love Gantu. I think Gantu's gonna find its way into one of my decks, even if it's a one of for no reason other than I want to play Gantu. All right. But ladies and gentlemen, these are the other decks that I'd like to look into. I don't know how good they're going to be or how good they are. I just haven't had time. There's so many options out there that I haven't had time to look at all the options to play all the options, but I'd love to look at the real Ruby Steel disc, the Pirates, the Ruby Amber Pirates, and of course the Christmas Emerald Ruby Robin Hood Actions deck. But even an Emerald Ruby aggro deck, I think, could be good as well. But this has been a long video, everyone. I don't really have any takeaways. I should have changed that to thank you. But this has been a long video, so I want to cut it off. Lots of decks, 12 decks for you guys to look at, 12 decks to take yourselves to hopefully victory if you have a sealed event coming up, or not a sealed event, but a case event coming up really early. We just saw there's a store down in Florida posted they're doing a 2 case event just a couple days after the start of the Azurite Sea. So keep your eyes open, everyone. Check your local stores, see what they're doing, and it's crunch time. Like I said, we have 4 days until we get to play with some Azurite Sea. I'm excited. I hope you guys are. Let me know in the comments how excited you are, what you're most excited to play, and I hope to see you all around. Until next time, remember the goal is just staying happy and healthy, all right? I'll see you around.